All right, here we are. Welcome, everyone. I think the meeting has started. So, yes, welcome everyone on behalf of the UN Water Convention Secretariat and IW Learn. It's a pleasure to moderate this 1-hour webinar. My name is Lucia De Strasser. I'm Environmental Affairs Officer at the Secretariat of the UN Water Convention at UNECE. Personally, I lead the work on the water, food, energy ecosystem nexus under the convention, which is quite related to the work on source to sea. And so it's particularly interesting and inspiring to participate in this webinar with all of you today. So before we start, a few rules. The classical rules of webinars. I think we're all used to them by now. But as you can see, the meeting is being recorded. We will keep your microphones on mute. And if you have questions or comments, you're very welcome to share them in the chat. We will hopefully have a bit of time at the end of the webinar to take some of the questions. We will see how good we are with time. And yes, other than that, I think we can kick off the speeches. And for this webinar, we will have Ruth Matthews, who is the lead author of the 2 publications that she will present and introduce today. We will have Costantina Toli, who is the project coordinator of IW Learn. We will have Sonia Koppel, who is the Secretary of the UN Water Convention. And we will have the 3 panelists that I will introduce later one by one with more detail. So without further ado, let me invite Costantina for her opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucia. Good morning, good afternoon, colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here today and to be introducing the 2 publications of on source to sea approach, the publication by the UN Water Convention, the guidance note for the implementation of the source to sea management in transboundary basins, and the IW Learn publication on the practical guidance on source to sea in GEF IW projects. It is, you're all here because you have a keen interest apparently in exploring how to, you understand that we're talking about one system and that this has an impact, you know, what happens upstream has an impact downstream. And but there's always a question. Yes, we understand there is pollution, there is land erosion, there are a number of things that are moving, you know, apparently with the water courses towards the sea. And we can see that it can be considered as one system. But practically, when everyone has a different mandate and when stakeholders have their own interests, you know, on one area or the other, how do we bring them together? How do we eventually make this happen, you know, in a practical, make this tangibly happen? So these 2 publications, these 2 guidance notes, they bring together complementary but different aspects. The Water Convention publication focuses more on the governance side of things and the policy side of things, on how to strengthen the source to sea cooperation in transboundary basins by strengthening also the policies and exploring more of the legal and the governance side of things, while the IW Learn publication is a very tangible guidance that takes the well-established source to sea approach and brings it down to the level of the GEF IW project cycle. So if you're thinking from a project point of view, how you're going to design, you know, such an approach. And while this has been designed through the GEF IW project cycle, so it has the distinct phases of project development, project concept, development, implementation, monitoring, learning, and evaluation, eventually they are applicable for any application that you may have within or beyond the GEF funds. So it's with great pleasure that we are presenting these publications today. The Source to Sea approach was launched, I think, 6 months ago, if I'm not mistaken, in October 2026. And the IWLN publication was only launched yesterday. It was a concerted effort by not only by us, by the IWLN team, an effort that was led by our lead author for both publications, by Ruth Matthew. I think she needs no introduction. She's almost a synonym to the Source to Sea approach. But it really integrates and it translates the experience of the projects and of the experience of the ground. So we are translating this, the expertise on one hand with the hands-on experience, from the projects, and we are transforming this into a guidance that we truly hope that you will find useful in practicing, not just thinking Source to Sea, but eventually breaking it down, understanding your entry points and seeing, how to make this happen. So with this, I'm not going to spend any more time, in introductions. I think the content is more important. So I'm handing back to you, Lucia, for the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Costantina, for this introduction. I'm glad I didn't spend time before. So you already mentioned the two titles, and Francesca pasted the links to the two publications also on the chat for your information. Now you said that Ruth doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to introduce her shortly. She will present the two publications side by side to show in which way they differ and in what way they are also complementary. And then following that, we will have this panel discussion including Harry Lee from Estonia, Laverne Walker from the UNEP Cartagena Convention, Viviane Kinyaga from the Orange Senku and from Orasicom, sorry, and Mario Arturo Escobedo Lopez from SICA, from CCAD. So before we go to the panel, let me introduce now for real Ruth Matthews. She's a senior water governance expert specializing in source to sea management, regenerative water stewardship, and sustainable value chains. She is the founder and principal of Currents Converge, where she facilitates cross-sector collaboration for the sustainable management of land, freshwater, coastal, and marine ecosystems. Previously, she served as executive director of the Water Footprint Network and led the Source to Sea program at the Stockholm International Water Institute, SIWI. Ruth will give us a glimpse of what you can find inside the two publications, how they complement each other, and how to use them in your work. So, Ruth, take it away.
Thank you very much for that. And I just want to confirm that you hear me.
Yes.
Yes, great, but thank you. I have too many things going on my screens. Yeah, so thank you very much for the introduction, and I'm very pleased that you all have joined us today to publications together, because they really do belong together as complementary guidance that can be used by all of you. So just to introduce Source to Sea management briefly, for those of you who may not have experience with it, it is a holistic approach to management of land, freshwater, coastal, and marine ecosystems. And those Source to Sea systems are connected by 6 key flows. water, biota, sediment, pollutants, materials, and ecosystem services. And there are other flows that may connect them, but these are the key ones that we look at when we're trying to understand the social, economic, and environmental linkages across these different ecosystems. Unfortunately, most of the time, governance of source-to-sea systems is fragmented between different agencies, between different mandates, and that results in the management responsibilities operating in silos. This can lead to negative consequences where actions taken in one part of the source-to-sea system are having impacts elsewhere that had not been considered when choosing to take those actions. And a really important thing is that many source-to-sea systems are transnational. Source-to-sea management then facilitates this integration of decisions and governance to protect ecosystems, to improve living conditions, and to meet the global goals of sustainable development. There are some foundational materials that have been developed prior to these two publications that the publications have been built upon. One is a publication by the GEF Science, Technology, and Science and Technical Advisory Panel. And then SeaWe and the Source-to-Sea platform created this Source-to-Sea guidance document for practitioners, and then the Source-to-Sea approach was applied to marine litter prevention. And so these are the foundations upon which these publications have been developed. What we do see is that source-to-sea is rising on the global agenda. You can see that in the declarations from the UN Ocean Conferences, that it's a theme in the upcoming 2026 UN Water Conference, and many other places. And so it's really a timely event that these publications are now available for use. So we have these two guidance publications and one connected approach, and they really complement each other. And I'll do a brief introduction, as Lucia said, a glimpse into them. And I hope that you go to the links in the chat and download them and take a closer look. The guidance note from the Water Convention really aims to expand transboundary source-to-sea cooperation. It shows how source-to-sea management is positioned within existing global and regional legal frameworks. It provides examples for operationalizing the source-to-sea cooperation, and then it gives recommendations for different actors to take that can accelerate the adoption of source-to-sea management. It's also supported by 26 case study examples from around the world, and this gives a lot of examples of how it can be done in different types of conditions, locations, situations, and what different parts of the source-to-sea management principles are being applied. So we looked at the global conventions to see how they support source-to-sea cooperation, and quite a few do have text in them that indicate the need to have this holistic approach from land to the coast and the ocean. Through the freshwater systems. And the UN Water Convention is definitely one of those that has large support for that. And this is why UNECE and the Water Convention Secretariat and parties have developed this guidance. So you can see in the Water Convention that already in the preamble It mentions that the marine environment, coastal areas need to be considered when addressing pollution from land-based sources. It also indicates how coastal states can be affected by transboundary impact, and that including them in cooperation would be important, and that the joint bodies that are established by coastal states for the protection of the marine environment can be part of the cooperation in transboundary river basins. Coming from the marine side, regional seas conventions and action plans also indicate that they recognize the need to work upstream for the health of the ocean. And this is largely through land-based sources and activities, protocols on that, regional plans, working groups, and other modalities to develop a framework for building cooperation from upstream down into the ocean. We looked at a variety of modalities for source-to-sea cooperation, and these legal arrangements can facilitate this cooperation between the different parties through memoranda of understanding, letters of agreement, protocols, and also through the establishment of joint task forces, expert groups, working groups. So it can be quite a hands-on type of cooperation. The activities that can be undertaken underneath these arrangements can include joint action plans, target setting on pollution prevention, joint monitoring programs, stakeholder engagement, and joint planning instruments, to just name a few. And what's important about this is that in the guidance note, we have given examples of concrete existing cooperation under these different types of modalities and these different activities. So you can see how it is actually being done through reading the guidance note. The guidance note ends with actionable recommendations, and this is a really important list of opportunities that different actors, from government to non-governmental organizations, academia, etc., can contribute to accelerating the adoption of source-to-sea management. And so if I were to summarize the role of the guidance note is to really help us understand that there is a legal framework, there are mechanisms for establishing source-to-sea cooperation in transboundary basins, and that there are many actions that can be taken together across the land, freshwater, coastal, and marine environments to have more holistic management of the source-to-sea system. So then turning to the how-to guide, a lot of what has happened when people read the guidance note is, well, how do we do this? And so the how-to guide comes in to answer this question. And it provides really detailed guidance, step-by-step guidance for incorporating source-to-sea considerations into GEF IW projects, because it was produced by IW Learn, but really it can be applied to any project or program, or give ideas for how to approach source-to-sea management in any kind of situation. It also supports governments in their activities of the private sector. Inside the guide, there's an introduction to core concepts and the 6 steps of the source-to-sea approach. That is then applied to the 4 phases of the project cycle that Konstantina mentioned: concept development, project implementation, and then monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And then it's full of field experiences, tip boxes, how-to boxes, key considerations, checklists, and then very detailed guidance with worksheets and examples. And so this is really a hands-on guide that is supported by examples from case studies from GEF IW projects that really give evidence for the application of the source to sea approach. So what is the source to sea approach? It is a 6-step project that starts with characterization, moves to engaging stakeholders, diagnosing the governance system, designing the theory of change, taking action, and then adapting through monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Those 6 steps were then applied to the 4 phases of the project cycle, and we get this diagram that shows how each one of the steps is applied at each step, each phase of the project cycle, and that as you go through the project cycle, you kind of deepen into the step. So at concept development, you might do a light touch understanding of the characterization of the biophysical system, whereas as you move into project development, you go more deeply into understanding the stakeholders and the governance system so that you can develop your theory of change. You then implement and delve into the actions that need to be taken to provide the enabling conditions and the changes in behavior that will lead to benefits for the source to sea system. So this guidance, it has lots of material behind it. I can't go into all of the details, but some of the key insights that we've seen from the case studies that we included and the work that we've done with projects around the world is that source to sea systems are complex. However, this guidance really helps to break it down into parts that enables you to understand it and bring it into a holistic understanding. The source to sea management increases the collaboration and really builds that holistic approach. And it is important to incorporate source to sea considerations early. I think this is one of the important learnings is, as soon as you sit down to think about what shall we do, to bring in that holistic perspective will be really important. And so what we saw and see is that as you work through the source to sea approach using the how-to guide, you come back to the guidance note where you see that you need to think about how to either establish or strengthen transboundary basin organizations, the regional seas conventions and action plans, and the agreements between them, how to create the mechanisms that can enable transboundary cooperation, and also that you need to build up that national policy and regulatory frameworks that can then work within that transboundary context through area-based planning frameworks, multi-sectoral stakeholder platforms, doing pilot projects and demonstration sites. Capacity development and knowledge exchange is really important. And then, of course, that monitoring, reporting, and the data systems. And so what we encourage is that you download both of the guidance note and the how-to guide, that you have them both in hand, and you understand their complementary nature and how you may move from one to the next and back and forth as you go through your process of implementing source to sea management and working on the ground with these concepts. And by doing so, then we can really see that this collective action can safeguard ecosystems and can create a future where nature and people flourish in harmony. And so we really encourage you to pick them up and explore them. And with that, I will turn it back over to Lucia.
Thanks a lot, Ruth. This was a very inspiring presentation, and I'm very glad you acknowledged all of the contributions that went into that work, because it was really a collective effort from a lot of case studies, a lot of practitioners around the world. And I was also thinking while I was listening to you that maybe the guidance note could be also called how to, in terms of how to implement the Water Convention with a source to sea perspective, and how to integrate it with other instruments, and more broadly, how to implement source to sea with through international law and international cooperation, basically. So before introducing the panel, I just wanted to acknowledge the presence of Jakob Granit, who is among the participants. And well, let's just acknowledge the fatherhood of a source to sea in many ways to him. And well, for those who don't know him, he was the head of SIDA, Swedish Agency for Development, and also the Swedish Water and Marine Agency. Yes. I don't know if you have the possibility to open the mic, Jakob. No, no, because it's a webinar. You do. Okay, now you can.
Yes, I have. Thank you so much for acknowledging me and colleagues who have been working on this. I actually made a presentation on this yesterday, so I'm still alive and kicking for promoting the topic at the Lund University. So very nice to see this work moving forward, and happy to engage again with you. Thanks so much. Keeping
Great. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so now let's move on to our panel. We will have 4 panelists. So, as you can see, from all regions of the world, we will start with Estonia, then we will move to, what's the order? We will move to Vivian from Southern Africa, then we will move to Central America with Mario, and then you have Cartagena, okay, Caribbean. Okay, so let's start with Harry. Harry is a special envoy for transboundary waters at the Ministry of Climate of Estonia. He's also former chair of the UN Water Convention and former chairman of HELCOM, which is the Commission for the Baltic Marine Environment Protection. Harry's expertise covers a range of environmental fields, including environmental engineering, environmental impact assessment, marine protection, and water management. And he has contributed to advancing many policies and initiatives on water cooperation, both in Estonia and globally. So, Harry, you have 5 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, after such a comprehensive overview already by Ruth, it's difficult to add here something in a general line, but to saying that approach is really in practice in some extent already in our region around the Baltic Sea, and in different case studies we also can notice that. If look one aspect, what maybe is interesting for me, that is a transboundary aspect there, of course, to see give a good possibility to introduce such a comprehensive approach also for transboundary waters. In our case, when we're living next to Baltic Sea and sharing some of our water bodies with our neighboring states, it is important to have such a, as was said, holistic approach, really, to cover a whole transboundary basin with same principles, starting from the source up to the sea. In our case, that's going through river systems, lake system, and the coastal waters. And of course, we keep in mind that the first thing should go first, and for example, monitoring and joint monitoring program is very important, that to have the same baselines for different countries, for different legal regimes. And also was mentioned that, for example, sometimes, quite many cases, cooperation is fragmented on water management, especially taking into account such a comprehensive approach like source to sea. We try to join that as much as possible in our ministry. We administratively also manage the sea all activities and water activities in the same administrative unit. And so we try to involve also our neighboring countries, all units together, and therefore important is to have an active and very proactive commission, Transboundary Water Commission, to work with that principle so that we are able to monitor, then to plan, and then to implement. Because for our case, for example, it is main element is certainly quality of water, and we need that quality for river system. We need that quality in lake, that is fish resource. And there we need to go with a deeper analysis so that to minimize the economical impact, in our case, for example, the impact from agriculture. And every year we renew our measures and to try to harmonize approaches with upstream country and with our neighboring country, so that to have a minimum negative effect to water body, so that to allow that water to flow up to Gulf of Finland in Baltic Sea as clean as needed. And this transboundary river, in our case, of course, that's not a very big river compared with some other rivers around the Baltic Sea, but at least pollution load is under control, and we say that is in good status for that river concretely. However, for some other rivers, we need to do more. With that, I want to say that it is important to have a clear legal regime and to follow that regime, and also to follow your activities, as was mentioned, to monitor and evaluate that. Therefore, even for those commissions, it's important to include supervision organizations, and we have also from both sides inspection institutions who are responsible for supervision, and through them, at least formally, that is fixed, that we report every year about implementation effectiveness. So with that, I think that shortly I covered our case. Maybe that is small in compared with the world different rivers, but at least I can say that the principle as such is working, and we're going to follow that. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Harry. I think your case was very clear on how you can approach why we should apply source to sea on something very concrete on the control of pollution and agreements on how to manage agricultural effluents. And I think your main point, the main point I would like to highlight that you made is the importance of being proactive in cooperation, and this includes, of course, source to sea cooperation. Next, I will invite the next panelist, who is Laverne Walker. Laverne is from St. Lucia. She's a marine management professional with more than 25 years of experience in coastal governance and sustainable development. She has worked on 2 GEF projects in the Caribbean large marine ecosystems, so GEF CLME and CLME+. and at UNEP's Cartagena Convention Secretariat. She brings to the panel her strong project management skills as well as scientific expertise grounded in marine biology and management. And I forgot to ask the questions actually to Harry before, but I will not forget now. The questions are pretty simple. They're the same to all panelists, and they are in which way does the guidance presented by Ruth help you advance on sources in management, and why should policymakers and practitioners use the guidance? So Laverne, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lucia, and thanks again for the invitation to participate in this webinar. So as indicated, currently I'm with the Cartagena Convention Secretariat, and we believe that this guidance note provides a great practical framework and tool that can support our contracting parties moving from concepts to implementation of source to sea management, and particularly with the wider Caribbean, where we have a lot of land-sea linkages. It seeks to translate source to sea into actionable steps by providing a stepwise implementation framework that supports systems assessment, stakeholder engagement, governance analysis, planning, and adaptive management. It also seeks to support operationalization of the land-based sources of marine pollution protocol, which is one of the 3 protocols under the Cartagena Convention. As indicated, I think by Ruth, one of our projects, the GEF IW Eco project, is in the guidance as case study 22. And we believe that looking at the project, the case of IW Eco aligns with the experiences of integrated watershed management, wastewater treatment, and coastal protection, as well as it confirms that upstream interventions generate measurable downstream benefits, such as improved water quality and ecosystem health, as was already indicated by the panelists before me. We believe as well that it enhances regional coordination. As indicated by Ruth, that's a strong point. It supports, and for us at the Cartagena Convention, that's important because we are dealing with 26 contracting parties, some of them small island developing states. So it does support joint action plans, harmonized policies, and cross-sector coordination amongst our contracting parties. And we also had, as Ruth noted, that it supports regional seas, but we were not there. But at our last COP in October 2025, COP 18, the contracting parties did approve a decision on how they can investigate how integrated water resource management principles can be better integrated into the conventions and its protocols. So we are hopefully moving in that direction as well, because recognizing that what happens upstream has a big impact on what is happening in the marine environment. And of course, it improves policy coherence, addressing fragmentation by linking freshwater, land, and marine governance systems, and supports alignment with regional obligations and global frameworks such as the Sustainable Development Goals. And just quickly, I want to say it also supports stakeholder engagement. This was particularly important in IW Eco, where it built ownership and sustainability through community-based approaches. And why we think it should be important for stakeholder policymakers and practitioners. We think that the guidance note and the how-to guide offers a replicable systems-based approach to addressing interconnected water, land, and ocean challenges. Some of the key benefits, we believe it reduces fragmentation by linking upstream and downstream impacts and improving cross-sectoral coordination. It delivers environmental, social, economic, and governance co-benefits simultaneously. It improves efficiency, cost effectiveness by avoiding isolated or conflicting intervention. And it also supports things like the Sustainable Development Goals. As I said, it also focuses on climate, biodiversity commitments, and integrated planning, which is what the IW Eco project did. And since IW Eco focus primarily on small island developing states, and we have a number of small island developing states within our contracting parties, I also wanted to just briefly touch on how these benefits sit specifically in that it manages a strong land to sea linkage where impacts quickly transfer from the ridge to the reef. It addresses vulnerabilities to pollution, climate change, and ecosystem degradation, as already stated. It supports sustainable livelihoods that many people in SIDS are dependent on, such as tourism and fisheries. It optimizes limited resources, and that is a huge challenge through coordinated regional and national efforts. And it builds resilience by, again, integrating water, land, and marine management approaches. So thank you very much. That is my intervention.
Thank you so much, Laverne. Thank you for highlighting the measurable benefits of cooperation. I will jump right onto the next speaker, who is Viviane Kinyaga. She's a transboundary water management specialist who has implemented GEF projects in the Orange Senku River Basin and the Benguela current large marine ecosystem. Thanks to this experience, she has strong knowledge of source-to-sea transboundary cooperation in practice, actually on two transboundary systems, one freshwater and one ocean ecosystem, that are interconnected with each other and influence one another. So through her work, she has engaged with the unique governance and environmental challenges that arise across the freshwater marine continuum. Viviane, you have 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to share our experiences from Southern Africa. Yes, I will focus primarily on the two systems that you've mentioned. That's the Orange Senku River Basin, the Benguela Current Large Marine Ecosystem. But lately, I'm also involved in the Kunene River System, which is of interest because it also drains into the Benguela Current Large Marine Ecosystem. So we basically have two river systems that drains into the same marine ecosystem. So that gives us good experiences. And I think the unique thing with the Kunene River system is that it just received GEF support, and we are currently working on the transboundary diagnostic analysis and the SAP. So I think the guidance note actually came at the opportune time for the Kunene, because it provides an opportunity for us to integrate the source-to-sea approach in the TDA and SAP process. Having said that, I will then draw my experiences mainly from the Orange Senku River and the Benguela Current system, as I have said. And what's really important there is that both these systems have commissions. So they have institutional mechanisms, they have environmental treaties as well. So there is cooperation between the countries or amongst the countries. And the commissions have recognized the interconnectedness of the systems. And we have tried to implement some joint activities, for example, looking at pollution monitoring. We've done a joint assessment to understand the status of the estuary, for example, all through GEF support. But what has really been difficult for us is to sustain the interventions because, number one, primarily financed through the projects, and once the projects come to an end, there is that phase of when not much is happening. But secondly, which is really very important, and that's the gap that the guidance documents are filling, was really how do we practically and sustainably implement the source-to-sea approach. Once the project teams are no longer there, what are the commissions supposed to be doing? So we see the source-to-sea guidance documents as a methodological approach that gives us step-by-step on what we can do. But most importantly, I think the documents are also flexible enough to allow us to adapt them as we go along. And just reflecting a little bit on the Kunene, because we are currently working on the TDA process there, looking at the environmental challenges through a flows perspective. I think that adds a lot of value, and it helps us to actually better understand the total source to sea continuum. For example, if you look at the two freshwater systems again, it connects the land system, the freshwater system. Groundwater is also important in this instance because we've got shared aquifers. We've done work on the estuaries, as well as the coastal zone. And then when you look at the LME, that's the large marine ecosystem, as much as the focus is primarily on the EEZ together with the coastal zone, there are also opportunities to link up with the high seas. So basically what I'm trying to say is that we've got an opportunity through the approach to basically connect the different segments of the source to sea continuum. And what I also like about the guidance note is that it gives us the mechanisms for cooperation, which is something that we've been struggling with. For example, what Ruth highlighted, for example, the memorandum of agreement, working groups working together. Yeah, so there are practical examples and things that we can take out from the guidance document. One other important thing, perhaps, and it also now takes us to the second question on how do policymakers come in. I agree with everything that Laven has said, but there's just one thing that I wanted to add, which speaks to policymakers helping us to address the barriers. For example, one element that we are struggling with in our context is to define the system or the segment boundaries. Specifically the coastal zone. We've got countries, for example, that South Africa, that has clearly defined their coastal zone. They have an integrated coastal zone management. And then we go to neighboring countries like Namibia, where we still do not have a clear definition of the coastal zone. So I think working with policymakers can help us address some of those challenges. Because, I mean, for us to really fully implement the source to sea continuum, we now need to address those gaps. And then another one which has also been highlighted in the document is this whole issue around institutional and policy fragmentation. And working with policymakers, we will be able to hopefully unlock some of that. But having said that, I also liked what Ruth said, that in this process, we also have to create linkages with other international environmental conventions. I mean, I will also add regional as well as national level policies, because it is becoming very clear in all the countries that we are working in the region that we need to link what we're doing through the IW focal area with biodiversity, with climate change. So I think there are definitely opportunities for us to link up with the national action plans addressing these various issues that are coming up through the other conventions. And then lastly, which I think it's very, very important, and we've learned this through our TDA consultations in the Kunene Basin, is that effective transboundary governance, and this includes source to sea, would require strong national institutions, technical capacity, and sustained collaboration. So as we do this, it's important really that we bring the governments in, we work hand in hand with them. We ensure that that there is technical capacity and the human resource to continue what we are introducing. So yeah, maybe for benefit of time, I will just end it here, but there's a lot to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivian. Super, super interesting, and great that you raised the issue of groundwater, which is also part of the system. Sometimes we don't mention it enough, and also to the need of linking projects in the long term to conventions and national plans. Last but not least, I'm inviting Mario Escobedo from Guatemala. He's an engineer specialized in natural resource management and also an environmental economist. Based in El Salvador, he coordinates the work on seas, biodiversity, and forestry in the Central American Commission on Environment and Development, or CCD. The Secretariat contributes to the sustainable development of Central American region by strengthening the cooperation and integration regimes of environmental management across Central American countries. He's the manager of multiple regional projects, including one on source to sea, I believe, that is starting soon. So Mario, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation, and congratulations to share this important documents about the guide, where we are really happy to have the guidance. Maybe for a short context, as you explained, Lucia, CCID is the Council of the Environment Minister of 8 countries in Central America and Dominican Republic, and it works as the regional environmental governance body for our region. I think that the guide present in a structured manner the steps and challenges that we have faced in the region to address the management of natural resources and environmental too. This is particularly relevant in our region, where almost, or at least 40% of the river basin are shared by 2 or more countries, and also where the river systems flow into either the Pacific or the Caribbean Sea. This is the ideal scenario for applying the source to sea approach. Indeed, we in the past also we have used the reef to reef approach, because we work in the reef of in the coral reef of Mesoamerican coral reef too. Our experiences demonstrate that the implementing this approach begins with political clarity of our decision makers. The engagement of multiple stakeholders, also integrated planning both together, river basin and coastal marine zones level, and also the implementation of integrated activities involving all sectors operating in the territories, such as agriculture, industry, tourism, fishery, among others. In addition, the guide helps us to prioritize and focus efforts on our regional strategy. We are implementing a regional environmental strategy framework with 5 strategic lines that include forestry, biodiversity, water resource management, climate change, environmental quality. And the idea is to implement the strategy under the source to sea approach. This enables the definition of key indicators to measure progress or impacts across terrestrial and coastal and marine systems. This is that we think that the guide helps us. And what about the policy maker and practitioners to use the guide? We're also based in the experience here in the region, as I explained, in the political clarity that makes a commitment regarding the advantages of the implementing of source to sea approach, and for this reason the Council of Ministries established through a regional agreement that all actions related to natural resource management should be carried out under the source to sea approach. And based on these agreements, we are currently implementing actions under the approach with a strong focus on capacity building, stakeholder engagement, development on planning instruments, and also on the implementation on the ground. And this has enabled us to build intersectoral agendas with other sectors such as agriculture, tourism, fisheries, aquaculture, involving governments, private sector, academia, communities, and indigenous people. We have implemented GEF projects on the risk, as I just said, on risk to sea approach. Currently, we are initiating the implementation of also another GEF project from source to sea approach with the 8 countries in SICA region. This project represents one of the largest regional international water projects on the source to sea approach, covering 8 countries, 19 river basins, and two oceans. It's a challenge to work, and the idea is to work implementing source to sea approach. From both technical and political perspective, applying the guide helps us clearly demonstrate the environmental challenges and interconnected water, energy, food, biodiversity. As a result, it facilitates collaboration among ministries, institutions, and different levels of governments, promoting the integration of public, private, and community stakeholders. We are happy to have the guide, and also we are challenged to implement the source to sea approach in this project that we will start it in 2 or 3 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario, and very much looking forward to hear how the project will develop, and great to hear that there is a strong political commitment to source to sea in the region, which is, as you said, sort of has to physically to cooperate at the regional level on water and oceans. So just to confirm, we are going to before the closing, we are going to have a picture altogether of everyone in the webinar today. So if you could turn on your camera, we will take a nice picture altogether for the communications and for memories. Francesca, let me know when you are when you have it.
I'm waiting for a few more faces to show. If not, we'll just proceed. Yes? Okay. Since there's a lot of you, I need to take 3 screenshots, 1 per screen. 1 sec. Okay, 1, 2, 3, tack. Okay, here's 1. I need to paste it. Okay, 1 second. Second screenshot. Great. And the last one, and then my colleague Sophia will launch the poll. So don't leave. Plus there's the. Okay, screenshots are done.
Thank you. And no, please don't leave, not only for the poll, but also for the closing. So yeah, you'll take a couple of minutes, please, to answer these, I believe, 4 questions very quickly to let us know what you think and know how we can improve the next one. Because I believe there will be other joint webinars, so this is also very good for us to know at the Water Convention Secretariat. And yeah, Francesca, please let me know when the poll is done.
Yeah. We'll give it, I think, 2 minutes stops. So it's only 4 questions.
Okay, great. And
does everyone see it? Because before we had some issues, so just like to make sure that everyone can see the pop-up.
And I mean, in
and respond.
Thank you. In the meantime, I'm just checking. We didn't have many questions, which is good because we don't really have time. But please send any question also in writing to us, and we will do our best to answer the questions related to this webinar. So maybe in the meantime, I'll just ask Sonia to.
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
if she's. Sonia, are you there?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Great. I don't see all of the cameras. So I don't know if you. I don't see you. Anyway, so Sonia Koppel, Secretary to the of the UN Water Convention, will do the closing. We'll say some few words. Let me just say that well, after that we will immediately close the webinar. So before I say goodbye, I just wanted to thank also very much Elise Zerrat, who is our colleague at the Secretariat, who led the work together with Ruth and all of the collaborators that led to the guidance note. So if this is a good moment, Francesca, I would call up Sonia to do the closing. Yes? Great. Thank you. Sonia, the floor is yours.
Actually, I see now a question in the chat. I don't know if we still have time to address it or not. Ruth, do you want to reply, or do you see it also? It says, how should the SOSC approach be adapted for small island developing states?
Yeah, I can jump in really quickly and just say that we do have examples of source to sea being applied in small developing states, small island states, and so it is something that we have taken into consideration in both the guidance note and the how-to guide, and especially the project that Laverne presented is a good source of evidence around that. And basically it's the same idea. It's just that the river system, like you say, is much shorter, and so the impacts are more immediate, and also that there's a higher dependence on the coastal ecosystems, and so for livelihoods, and so it's actually more important to implement a source to sea approach in small island and developing states so that those impacts can be reduced and the livelihoods protected. And I'll just keep it at that for now.
Thank you. And Sonia, yes, please. The floor is yours. I think we're a bit already over time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And on behalf of Water Convention Secretariat and also IWLearn, I would like to start by thanking you all, the participants in this webinar, the presenters, the panelists, and also the, so to say, the lead parties and the donors who actually enabled the production of those guidance notes for both the Water Convention side and for IWLearn side, and particularly also all those who have actually contributed and make those publication reality. Namely indeed Ruth, but also many other people who have contributed throughout the last few years. And as I said in my opening in the morning seminar, now obviously the next step is really to disseminate and use those guidance documents. So I would like to encourage you to look at them, to read them, and at least in the case of the Water Convention guidance note, it's also being translated into different languages, French, Spanish, Russian, etc. So hopefully this will also help eventually to disseminate. In our side, for example, we are planning a number of regional workshops in order to disseminate the documents in the next few months and years. And I think similarly in IWLearn, there will be upcoming events such as the IWC in October. But the most important is that those guidance documents are actually used on the ground by governments, by projects, by basin organizations, by regional seas, conventions, etc. And here, as I was mentioned in the morning, obviously this requires the mobilization also of the political level in order to mobilize political will to actually move ahead with the implementation and also to mobilize the funding for it. So that's why we need to bring those topics to those levels. For example, at the UN Water Conference in December, the UN Oceans Conference, and others going ahead. And maybe just to conclude, I mean, having been engaged in this area of transboundary cooperation, so as to see that for several years now, while on the one and I still see there are lots of challenges there to actually apply it on the ground. I think at least we can see increased awareness both among practitioners and among the politicians. So that's what many of you have shown who have spoken here and presented your case studies or your experiences from the ground, but also actually in between the morning and afternoon webinar, I was at an event with and for ambassadors here in Geneva, and while they did not call it necessarily source to sea approach, I would say several of them still alluded to the importance of connecting the source to the sea in their statements, meaning that I think they all see how water, freshwater, and oceans are crucial for economic development, for sustainable development, for also peace and security, and environmental protection, and also for economic growth and addressing climate change and others. So with this, once again, thank you to all of you. And we will stay in touch with you, and I also encourage you to not only to use but also to disseminate within your networks, within your projects, and within your colleagues the lessons, the good practice examples, and the applications presented today. Thank you also to IW Learn and everybody once again for today. Back to you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.
We shall close the event now.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.